My dad snatched my phone out of my hand so violently my wrist ached for days. He stood right in front of me and scrolled through my private messages like I was not even a person. When I tried to take it back, he shoved me away with enough force to make the message clear. I was not allowed to resist. Then he stared at me with a look I will never forget and said I was supposed to belong to him. I did not cry. I did not argue. I went still and quiet, because in that moment I understood something I had been avoiding for years. Acting confused and harmless was not weakness. It was the only way to survive. That happened 2 years ago. Yesterday, I got a voicemail from him. He was crying so hard that most of the words were a blur. I only caught pieces of it, my name, a few broken breaths, and the sound of a grown man falling apart. I stared at my screen for a long time after it ended, feeling nothing at first, then feeling everything all at once. People love to say family is everything. They love to say blood is stronger than anything else. They say parents always mean well. They say an aunt will protect you like a second mother. They say if you are young, you should trust the adults around you. I used to believe those things. Or at least I wanted to believe them. But my life taught me a different lesson. In my family, adults did not protect children. Adults used children. Adults traded loyalty like money. Adults smiled while they harmed you and then acted shocked when you finally fought back. I learned early that when danger lives inside your own house, you do not always get to run. Sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes you have to watch. Sometimes you have to pretend you do not understand what is happening, because the second you show fear, the predator knows you see them clearly. And once a predator knows that, they tighten their grip. I was 7 years old when I first noticed something wrong with my dad. I did not have the words for it at the time. I did not know what that kind of wrong was called. All I knew was how my stomach twisted when his eyes lingered too long. How my skin felt tight when he stared at me in a way that did not match the moment. It happened at the community pool. I had a simple swimsuit with bright colors. I remember being excited that day, because I finally felt brave enough to go down the small slide. I ran back to my towel, laughing, dripping water, feeling like a normal kid. My dad was sitting in a chair nearby. He did not smile the way dads smile when they are proud of their child. He just stared. His eyes moved slowly over me like he was studying something that belonged to him. I felt my face burn, even though I did not understand why. I pulled a towel around my shoulders and sat behind my mom, trying to disappear. That night, I lay in bed and replayed the feeling again and again. I could not explain it, but I knew it was not safe. I knew it was not normal. From that day on, I started creating distance. If my mom stepped into another room, I followed her. If she left me alone with my dad, I found an excuse to go outside, or to sit where I could not be touched easily. In the car, I refused to sit in the front seat. I told my parents I got carsick, and I made a big deal about how sitting behind him helped. My dad tried to argue at first, but my mom was tired and did not want drama, so she allowed it. It became my routine. My plan. I became an expert at small survival tricks. I learned how to keep my voice light and normal while my body screamed inside. I learned how to laugh at jokes that were not funny so my dad would not get suspicious. I learned how to look busy so he could not demand my attention. I learned how to keep the peace. It worked for a long time. Then I turned 14. Puberty is already hard when your family is normal. When your family is not normal, puberty feels like stepping onto a stage under bright lights with no way to escape. I changed. My body changed. People started seeing me differently. And my dad started acting differently too. At first, it looked like improvement. Like growth. Like he was finally becoming the kind of father I wished I had. He began buying me things. Not small things either. New clothes. A better phone. Cute little gifts that felt like rewards. He started giving me more space. He knocked before entering my room. He stopped hovering so much. He took me out for drives and let me pick the music. He listened to me complain about school, about friends, about the world. For the first time in my life, I felt like there was one adult in my house who actually cared. That is what made it so dangerous. When someone hurts you and then becomes kind, your brain wants to believe the kindness is real. You want to believe the fear was a misunderstanding. You want to believe you were overreacting as a kid. I wanted to believe that. For about a year, my dad became the center of my world. He was the one who noticed when I was sad. He was the one who cheered me up. He was the one who felt safe compared to everything else. My mom was always busy. She worked long hours and came home exhausted. She loved me, I think, but her love felt distracted. Like she was doing her best while keeping her eyes closed to anything she did not want to face. So when my dad gave me attention, I accepted it. I convinced myself he was just overprotective before. I convinced myself I had imagined the creepy moments. I convinced myself he had changed. Then I got a boyfriend. And everything fell apart. His name was Ethan. He was sweet and awkward and funny. He wore too much cologne and got nervous when he talked to my parents. He held my hand like it was something precious. He made me feel normal. When I told my dad about Ethan, my dad smiled. At first, he made jokes like I was still his little kid. He messed up Ethan's name on purpose, then laughed when Ethan corrected him. He ruffled my hair and said I was growing up. I laughed along because I wanted the moment to be normal. But the shift started right away, even if I did not see it clearly at first. My dad stopped inviting me on our drives. He canceled our movie nights. When I tried to talk to him about school or friends, he gave short replies like he was bored. Sometimes he did not reply at all. He would stare at the TV and act like I was invisible. I told myself it was adjustment. I told myself he was learning to share me with someone else. I told myself it would pass. Then came the day in the hallway. I was texting Ethan after school. I was smiling at my phone like a normal teenage girl. My dad walked by. He did not ask what I was doing. He did not tease me gently. He did not act curious. He grabbed the phone out of my hand so hard that my wrist snapped back. Pain shot up my arm. I gasped. He leaned close and hissed at me, asking what I thought I was doing. I froze. His voice did not sound like the dad who took me on drives. It sounded like a stranger. It sounded like a man who had been pretending, and the mask had slipped. Before I could react, he started scrolling through my messages. Right there. In front of me. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. I reached for the phone without thinking, trying to get it back, and he shoved me away. Not enough to send me flying, but enough to remind me that he was bigger, stronger, and willing to use that advantage. When he finished reading, he did not hand the phone back. He just stared at me. For a second, I thought he might cry. His eyes looked wet. His jaw tightened. His face twisted like he was fighting something inside. Then he said the sentence that broke my world open. He told me I was supposed to be his. Those words drained the blood from my face. My body went cold, like someone opened a freezer door inside my chest. In that moment, the memory of the pool came back. The staring. The discomfort. The years of avoiding him. The way I had tried to protect myself without knowing why. I finally knew why. I also knew that if I confronted him openly, if I yelled or threatened or exposed him, I might not be safe anymore. Not in that house. Not around him. Not while my mom kept pretending everything was fine. So I did what I had always done. I played dumb. I stood there and acted confused. I forced my face into a blank expression and asked what he meant, like I did not understand. He stared harder, almost angry that I did not react the way he wanted. Then he tossed the phone back at me like it was trash. I caught it with shaking hands, and I walked to my room slowly, like nothing happened. Inside, I locked my door and sat on the floor with my back against it. My chest hurt. My throat felt tight. I did not even cry right away. I just sat there, listening to the house, listening for his footsteps, trying to figure out what to do. I knew one thing for sure. I had to leave. But leaving is not simple when you are a kid and the adults who should help you are part of the danger. I did not trust anyone on my dad's side of the family. They were the kind of relatives who defended anything as long as it was convenient. I had heard them excuse his temper, his jealousy, his strange behavior for years. So I called the only person I thought might be safe. My aunt on my mom's side. Aunt Susan. She lived 3 hours away by bus. We were not close, but she was my mom's sister, and my mom always described her as strong, independent, and blunt. The kind of woman who could not be controlled easily. I called her with trembling fingers and asked if I could visit for a while. I kept my voice light. I said I needed a break from home. I said I wanted to focus on school and maybe get away from distractions. She paused, then said yes. That evening, I packed a bag quietly. I told my parents I had a school project and wanted to spend a few days with my aunt to concentrate. My mom barely looked up from her laptop. My dad stared at me with a strange expression, but he did not stop me. I got on the bus and watched my town shrink behind me, feeling both terrified and relieved. For 3 hours, my mind raced. I wondered if I was being dramatic. I wondered if my dad would follow me. I wondered if I was misunderstanding everything. But then I remembered his voice in the hallway and the way my skin went cold. No, I was not misunderstanding. When the bus finally arrived, I stepped off into a different neighborhood. The streetlights felt dimmer. The air felt different. My hands were sweaty around my bag strap. Aunt Susan opened the door before I even knocked fully. Her smile was huge. Too huge. Her face looked almost glowing with excitement. She pulled me into a hug and called me sweetheart. She said she was so happy I came. She said she missed me. I felt tears rise immediately, not because her hug healed me, but because I was exhausted from holding myself together. Inside her house, I broke down. I cried so hard I could not breathe. I kept trying to apologize for being dramatic, but the words tangled up in sobs. Aunt Susan stroked my hair like she was comforting a child. Then she said something that stunned me. She told me she knew about my dad. I froze. My head lifted. My eyes burned. My voice shook as I asked what she meant. She did not give me details. She did not say she had proof. She just said she had always suspected something was wrong, and she had been waiting for me to come to her. For the first time in years, I felt something close to safety. That week with Aunt Susan felt like a different life. Every night, she checked on me before bed. She gave me a dream catcher, saying it would help keep nightmares away. Every morning, she made me tea and taught me breathing exercises. She talked about meditation and calming the nervous system. She told me I was not a toy and not a prize and not something anyone had the right to own. I started believing her. I started thinking maybe this was the beginning of freedom. I was wrong. The calm was just the quiet before the storm. Near the end of that week, Aunt Susan handed me a flyer for a job at a local nursing home. She said they needed helpers and it would be good experience and good money. I told her I appreciated it, but I was busy with school. I was still a kid, and I was trying to keep my grades up. I said I would think about it later. Her face changed so fast it scared me. She went silent. Her smile faded. She walked away without another word. The next morning, she was smiling again, but her eyes were different. Cold. Sharp. Like she was measuring me. She sat across from me at breakfast and talked casually, like she was discussing weather. She said my parents had been calling. She said they missed me. My mouth went dry. I asked what she told them. She tilted her head and gave me a small smile. She said she had not told them anything yet. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked me if I really wanted them to know what we talked about. My stomach dropped. She mentioned my grandparents, my cousins, my friends, the people who would gossip if the truth came out. Then she slid the job flyer back across the table. She said it would be a shame if everyone heard ugly rumors about why I came to stay with her. And it would also be a shame if my parents got angry and dragged me home before I was ready. I stared at the flyer like it was a trap, because it was. In my mind, I saw my dad's face. I heard his voice telling me I belonged to him. I imagined being forced back into that house because Aunt Susan decided to expose me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the flyer at her. But I did not. Because if there is one thing my dad trained into my bones, it is this. When someone has power over you, you do not show your teeth until you know you can bite. So I plastered on a smile. I told her of course I would take the job. Her smile returned satisfied like she won. That day, I started working at the nursing home after school. I helped with meals, cleaned small messes, carried supplies, and listened to elderly residents tell the same stories again and again. The work itself was not the worst part. The worst part was what came after. Aunt Susan demanded 70% of my paycheck. She told me she was housing me, feeding me, and protecting me, so I owed her. She said it like it was normal. Like she was doing me a favor. I smiled and agreed. Then she added more demands. She ordered me to clean her house from top to bottom every weekend. Bathrooms, floors, laundry, everything. I smiled and agreed. At first, she acted kind when she gave commands, like she was teaching responsibility. Then she stopped pretending. She insulted me when I was too slow. She mocked me when I looked tired. She called me ungrateful when I asked for a break. And through it all, I kept smiling. She thought I was weak. She thought I was dumb. She had no idea I was learning her habits, her routines, her weaknesses. I was playing the long game. My first step was documentation. I started a secret journal. I wrote down every demand she made, every time she took money, every insult, every threat. I recorded dates and times, because details matter when you finally tell the truth. I hid the journal inside a hollowed-out math textbook because I knew she would never touch anything that looked like homework. Aunt Susan loved to think she was smarter than everyone else. That arrogance made her careless. My parents were not better. When I called home that first weekend, my mom asked if I was being grateful. She told me Aunt Susan was doing me a huge favor. My dad got on the phone and reminded me that family helps family. He said I should stop complaining and do what I was told. They did not ask if I felt safe. They did not ask if I was okay. They just wanted Aunt Susan to stay happy so they would not have to deal with me. I listened quietly and agreed with a soft voice, like the perfect obedient daughter. Inside, something hardened. At school, I joined a computer club to stay busy, but also because I needed skills. That is where I met Jamie. Jamie was quiet and smart. The kind of kid teachers underestimated because he did not speak much. But when he did speak, it was clear he understood things most people did not. I did not dump my whole story on him. I learned quickly that sharing too much can be dangerous. But I hinted that I was living with an adult who was controlling, and I wanted proof. Jamie did not ask for drama. He just asked what I needed. That is how I ended up buying small hidden cameras with the little money Aunt Susan allowed me to keep. I placed one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one aimed at the front door. I did not do it to spy for fun. I did it because in my family, adults lie like breathing. And if you do not have evidence, you become the crazy one. The cameras caught everything. They caught Aunt Susan bringing different men into the house when she thought I was at work. They caught her talking on the phone and calling my parents idiots for dumping me on her. They caught her digging through my backpack and reading my school papers, searching for secrets. They caught her laughing with her friend Barbara about how she was using my paycheck for her shopping addiction. And they caught the worst part. They caught her saying she was milking the situation for all it was worth. I saved every file somewhere safe. Not on a device she could grab, not somewhere obvious. I kept copies, backups, insurance, but I did not use it right away. I needed more than proof that she was cruel. I needed leverage. The next phase came on her birthday. I baked her favorite cake. I bought her a bracelet using my own money. I acted like I adored her. I acted grateful. I acted like the perfect niece who finally understood what she owed. She looked surprised. Then she looked pleased. That pleased look told me I was doing it right. During the birthday moment, I suggested something carefully. I said maybe I could help her manage money because I was good at math. I told her I could track expenses and organize bills. I said it like I was trying to help her. She laughed at first and said I was just a kid, but I kept pushing gently. I showed her simple ways to track spending. I made it look like a school skill. I offered to set things up so she would not have to do it. Aunt Susan was lazy. She loved being taken care of. She also loved feeling superior. So she agreed. That was when I discovered the truth. Aunt Susan was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Late car payments. A second mortgage on a house that should have been paid off long ago. She was not taking my paycheck because she wanted spending money. She was taking it because she was sinking, and I was the rope she used to pull herself up. Knowing that changed everything. I became even more helpful. Not because I meant it, but because help gives you access. I sorted her mail. I organized bills. I listened when she complained. I learned which companies called her. I learned which payments she avoided. I learned which lies she told herself. I cleaned more. I cooked dinners. I offered to handle errands. Aunt Susan started bragging about me to people. She told them she was turning me into a responsible young adult. She said she was mentoring me. She took credit for every change, like my growth was her accomplishment. My parents called and praised me too. They said they were proud I was finally behaving. None of them understood that I was building a case. By the 3rd month, I had enough evidence to destroy Aunt Susan completely, but I still waited. When you strike too early, you miss the best moment. The perfect moment arrived when Aunt Susan told me her boss, Mr. Michael, was coming to dinner. She was hoping for a promotion. She begged me to make everything perfect. I smiled brightly and promised I would. I cleaned the house until it looked like a showroom. I cooked a meal that smelled expensive. I set the table with her best dishes. Aunt Susan was thrilled. When Mr. Michael arrived, I acted polite and charming. I served food. I smiled. I played the role of the grateful niece. Then I excused myself and went to my room. But I was not studying. I was watching the camera feed. Aunt Susan performed like an actress. She took credit for the clean house. She praised herself for raising me. She told Mr. Michael she was a leader both at work and at home. He looked impressed. That was when I placed my trap. Earlier, I had set an envelope on the coffee table. It was labeled clearly with words that made it look important, like it held financial paperwork. I made sure it sat in a spot that Mr. Michael would notice. While Aunt Susan went to the kitchen for dessert, Mr. Michael picked up the envelope. He opened it. Inside were copies of credit card statements showing large purchases on days she claimed she was sick. There were also printouts of messages where she insulted Mr. Michael behind his back. I did not include everything. I did not ruin her entire life in one move. I only ruined her promotion. Because I wanted her to feel the frustration of losing something she thought she deserved. From my room, I watched Mr. Michael's face change as he read. When Aunt Susan returned, he made an excuse and left quickly. Aunt Susan looked confused at first. Then she saw the open envelope. Her scream shook the house. She burst into my room holding the papers, shaking with rage. She accused me of sabotaging her. I widened my eyes and acted innocent. I asked what was wrong and why she was yelling. She could not prove I did it on purpose. Because in her story, I was just a dumb kid, and I used her own story against her. The next day, she did not get the promotion. She came home furious and took it out on me. She demanded 80% of my paycheck now. She demanded I clean every day, not just weekends. I cried softly and agreed. My parents called, and when I tried to hint that things were getting worse, they told me to stop being dramatic. They told me to be grateful. That was when I knew it was time. I prepared 3 packages. One for my parents, one for Aunt Susan's workplace, and one I kept hidden as insurance. I waited until Aunt Susan was at work. Then I called my parents and told them I needed to talk seriously. They acted annoyed, like I was interrupting their day. I emailed them the first package while we were on the phone. I heard the shock in their voices as they opened videos and documents. For once, they had no quick answer. I told them there was more. I told them if they did not help me get out, Aunt Susan's boss would receive his package tomorrow. My dad started ranting about loyalty. My mom went quiet, the way she does when she cannot deny reality anymore. I gave them my terms. I wanted to come home. I wanted an apology. And I wanted them to confront Aunt Susan. They agreed, not because they suddenly cared, but because they were scared. My mom drove up the next day to get me. Aunt Susan came home early and found us packing. She screamed about ungrateful brats. She threatened to call police about the cameras. I stayed calm. I showed her my insurance package. The one with proof of the men she brought home while a minor lived there. Proof of financial fraud. Proof of workplace misconduct. I told her she could call police if she wanted, but then I would show them everything. Her face went white. For the first time, she looked at me like she actually saw me. Not as a weak kid. As a threat. My mom watched the exchange stunned. We left. As we drove away, my mom kept glancing at me in the mirror. She asked if I planned this from the beginning. I did not answer. Because the truth was, my plan did not end with leaving Aunt Susan's house. My parents thought bringing me home meant everything would go back to normal. They did not understand that their betrayal cut deeper than Aunt Susan's. Aunt Susan was cruel, yes. But my parents were supposed to protect me, and they chose convenience instead. So my next phase began. It was simple. Make them pay too. I spent the first week back home playing the fragile victim. It was not hard. I cried at random moments. I flinched when doors closed. I spoke softly. I acted like I was healing, but still broken. My parents tiptoed around me. They whispered in the kitchen at night. My mom said I needed therapy. My dad said I needed time. They were both wrong. What I needed was access. Guilt makes people careless. Guilt makes them hand you tools without realizing it. I started small. If my mom left her laptop open, I found ways to see what she did on it. If my dad left his phone out, I learned his passcode. I searched drawers and cabinets when they were distracted. I found tax documents. I found bank information. I also found secrets. My mom had an email account she hid. She wrote messages to a man from work that were too friendly to be innocent. My dad used a gambling app and lost more money than he admitted. Everyone in my family had lies. At school, I played the quiet girl who returned after a family emergency. Teachers gave me extra time on assignments. The counselor checked on me twice a week. I walked the line carefully. I needed them to think I was shaken, but not so shaken that anyone dug too deep. Meanwhile, Aunt Susan was facing legal trouble. My parents thought that was justice. They did not know I was still moving pieces. My opportunity arrived when my parents announced they had a weekend work retreat. They hesitated about leaving me alone. My mom twisted her ring nervously. My dad asked if I would be okay. I smiled softly and said I would be fine. I mentioned a sleepover with a friend from school. There was no sleepover. The moment their car disappeared down the street, my real work began. I caused small disruptions, the kind that looked like bad luck at first. Messages were sent from my mom's work email that raised concerns about her professionalism. Nothing obvious, nothing that screamed sabotage, just enough to make people uncomfortable. Texts went out from my dad's phone canceling meetings with important clients, using excuses that made him look unstable. Money movements were scheduled in their accounts that would trigger alerts later and cause chaos when questions came. Small cracks. Not a full collapse yet. The deeper target was Aunt Susan. She was on bail, trying to save her image. I sent information to people in her circle that turned friends into enemies. I made it look like she blamed them. I made it look like she confessed and pointed fingers. By Sunday night, her phone would be full of angry messages. When my parents returned, I was curled on the couch reading a book. I looked calm. I looked safe. I looked like a child healing. My mom asked how the sleepover was. I said it was nice to feel normal. She looked relieved. They had no idea the chaos was already growing roots. Over the next weeks, everything I planted started to bloom. My mom got called into meetings at work. People questioned her judgment. My dad's clients complained. His boss asked why he was canceling meetings. The bank called about unusual activity. My parents argued late into the night. I lay in bed listening to them whisper and fight, and I felt a quiet satisfaction settle in my chest. My dad said someone must have hacked them. They changed passwords. It did not matter. They did not understand how close the danger already was, inside their own house, because they underestimated me the same way everyone always did. Then came Aunt Susan's hearing. My parents asked if I wanted to attend. I said yes. They thought I wanted closure. What I wanted was the next step. The night before the hearing, I sent an anonymous package to the prosecutor. It included extra financial documents I found at Aunt Susan's house, documents I never showed my parents. Documents that connected my dad to some of Susan's schemes. I found them hidden in an old desk compartment. The next morning, we sat in the courtroom. My parents on either side of me like they were protecting me. Aunt Susan sat at the front looking smaller than I remembered. When the prosecutor mentioned new evidence and additional parties, my dad stiffened. When my dad's name got said out loud, my mom gasped. I kept my eyes down and played confused. In the hallway during recess, my parents argued. My dad insisted he knew nothing. My mom did not believe him. Then my mom turned to me, tears in her eyes, and asked if I knew. I looked up with wide innocent eyes and asked what she meant. The hearing was postponed. We drove home in silence. That night, my mom moved into the guest room. Phase 5 was working perfectly. Over the next month, everything fell apart. My dad hired an expensive lawyer. My mom took leave from work. Accounts got frozen during investigations. Aunt Susan, desperate, started telling authorities that my dad was involved. I watched it all unfold like a slow storm. At night, I wrote in my journal, documenting steps and reactions. Part of me wondered if I went too far. But then I remembered the year at Susan's house. The blackmail. The theft. The way my parents ignored me. So I kept going. Then I made one mistake. I left my journal in the wrong place. My mom found it. She walked into my room holding it like it was poisonous. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. She asked what it was. I could have lied. I could have called it creative writing. I could have acted offended. But I looked at her broken face and realized it was time for a new phase. I told her it was the truth. I told her she sent me away. I told her she chose her life over me. I told her I stopped being a child the day she left me with someone who used me. She sank onto my bed and flipped through pages, seeing my plans, seeing the proof that the chaos in her life was not random. She asked if I did it all. I nodded. She whispered that I was just a child. I told her I was not a child anymore. She asked what happens now. I smiled, because that was the only honest answer I could give. What happens now is whatever I decide. After that confrontation, the house felt different. My parents feared me now. Not because I yelled. Not because I threatened. Because they finally understood I could destroy their lives the way they destroyed mine. I left soon after. I said I needed space. I said I needed to clear my head. I did not ask permission. I simply went. A few months later, I sat on a beach in Florida with the sun warming my skin and the ocean filling my ears. From the outside, it looked like a normal vacation. A young woman healing after trauma. But inside, I was planning. Not because I could not stop, but because planning was how I stayed alive. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Casey, asking how the vacation was. Casey was one of the only people who cared about me without strings. She did not know everything. She only knew I came from a messy family and I needed time. I sent her a simple beach photo and said I was okay. I did not tell her I was thinking about the next move. I had already watched my dad lose his job after evidence of financial misconduct reached the right people. I watched my stepfather Richard lose his political future when embarrassing proof surfaced. I watched my mom's social life crack when the truth about her choices reached her circle. And Susan was already suffering too. My recordings and documents ensured she could not harm anyone easily again. But even with all that, something felt unfinished. Not because I wanted more destruction. Because I wanted control of my future, and my family still had pieces of it. Then I got an email from my mom. She begged me to come home. She said we could fix it. The word fix made me laugh out loud. There is no fixing a childhood like mine. But her email gave me an idea. 2 weeks later, I returned to my hometown, but I did not move back in with anyone. I rented a small apartment. I wanted my own space, my own rules, my own safety. I agreed to meet my mom for coffee. When I arrived, my dad was there too. And Richard. A full reunion. They looked terrible. My dad looked older, smaller, like his confidence leaked out of him. Richard's polished smile was gone. My mom's hands shook around her cup. They apologized in turns. They blamed each other. They promised change. I listened and smiled. Then I told them I forgave them. Hope lit their faces, quick and desperate. But I added that forgiveness does not erase consequences. I gave them my terms. My dad would pay my college tuition he promised long ago. Richard would use connections to help me get an internship. My mom would tell the extended family the truth about leaving me behind and about what happened with Susan. They agreed immediately, because they were terrified of what else I might do. They thought they were escaping punishment. They did not understand that Phase 6 was not about hurting them more. It was about using them to build my life. A week later, Aunt Susan called me. Her voice was small. She said police kept showing up and someone kept reporting her for things she claimed she did not do. I made sympathetic sounds. Inside, I smiled. I was not trying to get her arrested anymore. I was just making sure she never felt safe. Making sure she lived with that same tension I lived with for so long. I suggested she move away and start fresh. She listened. She sold her house at a loss and moved to another state. By Christmas, I had what I wanted. Tuition paid. A strong internship. A family that finally admitted what they did. At least enough to feel shame. At a holiday dinner at my grandparents' house, I watched my mom explain to relatives why she left me behind. I watched faces tighten. I watched judgment land on her. My grandmother pulled me aside and said I changed. I smiled and said I grew up. Because that was true. In January, I started my internship. My boss praised my attention to detail. She said I had a natural skill for understanding people. She did not know that my skills were shaped by survival. By studying adults who lied. By watching patterns. By learning how to stay calm while danger stood inches away. Sometimes I wondered what kind of person I would have been if my family was normal. But wondering does not change reality. As the months passed, my life became stable. I earned promotions. I built independence. I decorated my apartment the way I wanted, clean and controlled, because control feels like peace when you grew up without it. And my family stayed afraid. Every few weeks, I sent small reminders that I could still see them. Not threats, not direct messages, just tiny signals that kept them uncertain. Uncertainty became their prison. By summer, I had more money, more confidence, and more freedom than I ever thought possible. Casey visited and told me she did not understand how I went from barely functioning to thriving. I shrugged and said I found motivation. I did not explain that sometimes success is just revenge turned into fuel. Then I got a letter from Aunt Susan. She said she was sick. She said cancer. She said she wanted to make amends. The paper looked worn. Her handwriting was shaky. I read it twice. Then I filed it away and did not respond. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I learned something important. Some people only apologize when they are desperate. Some people only feel regret when they are afraid of consequences. And sometimes the best answer is silence. On my birthday, my mom called and asked if I would come to a family dinner. I went. Everyone was there. Dad. Richard. Mom. Even my grandparents. There was cake, balloons, gifts. From the outside, it looked like a normal family celebration. My dad cleared his throat and told me they were proud of me. They all nodded, eager, like they were trying to earn my approval. I smiled and thanked them sweetly. They looked relieved, like they believed I finally moved on. But they still did not understand the truth. I did not move on. I moved forward. And moving forward does not mean forgetting. As I blew out candles on my cake, I made a wish. Not for more revenge. For strength. Strength to keep building my life so high that even the people who tried to break me would have to look up and realize what they created. Because the real ending is not me destroying them. The real ending is me thriving while they live with the quiet fear that I could destroy them again, anytime I choose. And maybe the most honest part of my story is this. Playing dumb saved my life. But learning how to plan saved my future.